Okay.
Okay.
All righty, and here comes Sandy. Well, good morning, everybody, or good evening, kind of depending on where you are at in the world, I suppose. Today is August 5th, 2021. This is the John Lavinian Success Mastermind environment, my series on leadership. Gosh, man, I don't think I've done one of these in about a month, just between traveling and being, I think we had some support we had to do in the office with one of our locum tenens doctors. So I ended up having to work in the office outside that. So my apologies for being away for so long on this particular session type. The topic we're going to talk about today, and well, before we start, I just want to acknowledge Sarah, Lindsay, Edward, Sandy, and whoever else. I just want to thanks for being here and providing some support to me. Thank you very much. I wondered, Glenn kind of got me off on this topic. I was, as kind of like John says, he doesn't know what he's going to talk about till he shows up. Well, I know what I'm going to talk about because I put together, as you know, typically a few slides, somewhere between about 5 and 15 freaking PowerPoint slides for, to talk, to help me kind of, walk through what I want to talk about. And earlier this week, Glenn was hitting on a topic yesterday, and I thought, hey, that actually would make some sense. So I spent a little time yesterday on stuff that I already knew, and I just kind of put things together. I do have a few slides for, on a PowerPoint. We'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to kind of kick this thing off. Hey, Robin. I wanted to kick this thing off talking about anybody's watched any kind of these war movies, and they see the submariner captain, and he's got he's looking in the periscope, and he's looking out there thousands and thousands of yards where he wants to, he's looking around for his target. Well, we're going to talk about bearing today, but that is not the kind of bearing we're talking about. He's sitting there and says, target is bearing 240, blah, blah. No, that's not the bearing we're talking about. We're going to talk about the other kind of bearing, the kind of bearing that that deals with how you act, how you behave in front of others, how you carry yourself, what you do in times of strife, and how that is viewed upon others. So before I go any further, I am going to share my screen. We're going to go that route like we typically do, and I will maximize the the PowerPoint so you can kind of see this. And I've actually, just if anybody's wondering, I suppose you probably figure out that yes, I have been in both of those positions. I've been a PSC long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And had senior officers and drill instructors and or other staff NCOs and NCOs while we're in formation do inspections and ask a lot of questions. We ask things like our general orders and specifications about our weapons, chain of command, issues on tactics, on navigation. I mean, the list is endless. And for the guy that's on the right-hand side that you see on his collar, that, the lieutenant colonel symbol, the silver oak leaf, I was in that position too, and I used to do inspections as well. That's kind of how isn't that how we all do this? We are in different corporate environments, we're in different settings, and as I had covered in a previous session many months ago, the six troop leading steps, you begin planning, arrange for reconnaissance, make reconnaissance, complete the plan, issue the order, and then with the last troop leading step is the most important, is called supervise. We all do that. We have things in companies called quality assurance or quality control or Sigma, or however you want to, whoever it is, that's the kind of the manufacturing or process police, if you want to call them that. These people are looking over our shoulder with a second set of eyeballs, or third or fourth, to make sure that things are going right. And if not, what do? They make little adjustments so we can continue to steer the ship. That's kind of how that works. Well, this goes on in this environment too. And as we move up the chain, so here you have a lieutenant colonel with his, he's probably a battalion commander of one of the battalions in, in one of the boot camps, and that guy is next to him is a drill instructor. That's probably the guy who's a drill instructor for that particular platoon, and he's asking this young Marine who's just about to graduate a series of questions, and you can see he's holding his rifle if you look down a little bit lower. And I just tell you from personal experience, when I was a young POC or Lance Corporal, and I think we have all been there, when we have somebody of authority, and I don't care if it's in the company or it is your customer base, they are in a position of authority, aren't they? Because they are buying your wares, they're buying your products, they are buying your service, they are buying whatever it is that you are marketing or selling, and it might be just yourself. And I would argue that actually in virtually every case, isn't that the kind of the ultimate underlying issue, is that somebody really, when they're interacting with you and you don't know each other from Shinola, there's that, they're buying you. They are in that, and John's talked about this too. In this issue, when we are first meeting, we are establishing rapport. We are establishing trust to some degree. We're kind of loosening, we're kind of trying to bring the wave tops down a little bit, smooth things out, so people feel a little more comfortable, a little more invited into the conversation. And we all do it, and it's good. I think it's a natural place that we are as humans to maybe have a little trepidation, kind of, we walk into things, and certainly as we age and gain some wisdom and experience, that in most cases, I want to say that's a very positive thing. But I think at times we can also become kind of jaded. Maybe we've been kind of screwed over a few times, or we've gone through and we've had experiences where, I'm not going to let that happen to me again, those kind of things. So just this is the interaction of the relationship that kind of occurs. And in these kind of environments where that's why I wanted to talk about bearing today, because bearing is how one is going to carry oneself. And when somebody is talking with us, or we're talking with somebody else, and the circumstances, they may be very stressful, maybe not. But in any case, whatever level that spectrum of stress may be, whether it's very easy or very hard, there's always an evaluation going on. We do it with others, they do it with us. We do it here. We're much more comfortable now that we've known each other for months, and even a year or better in some cases, with the JLSM environment and other channels of income if we're participating in those kind of things. But sooner or later, that this is an evaluation that's going on, and how are we carrying ourselves? If somebody's just freaking out, if somebody is just over the top, if they are having a challenge trying to manage their behavior, and we are looking to somebody, our leaders, to take a step back and take a breath and look a little bit, be a little bit easier about things, and maybe not so invasive or aggressive, that tends to reflect on us. Anybody who's ever looked at the tonality scale, this is a scale that lists a number of different sorts of characteristics of people as they are going through, it's a mood. It's sort of a mood tonality type of scale. Everything from people who are in complete apathy to people who have extreme enthusiasm, and everything in between. I'm sure we have all seen that scale. But this goes on here too, and people tend to gravitate towards people when they are a little bit cooler, a little bit calmer, a little less stressful. When they're looking for people, and the whole world is on fire, and we just want to take it down a notch and kind of regroup, so our thoughts have some time to decompress the information that's coming at us at the speed of heat. We are just inundated, and we're just trying to figure out how to bring that down. So that's kind of where I'm going with this topic today. 3 of the traits that the 14 that I kind of started off all these sessions with the 14 leadership traits of the Marine Corps. 3 of them I find have some interrelationship and have some interaction with one another. And I'd say, and I put bearing on the top because that's really the primary topic that we're hitting today. But there, I see a progression that happens, and it happens for all of us in virtually every endeavor. We start, and the 2 components that help us get to that magical area of calmness and trust from people, when we have that bearing, when we have that kind of look, that kind of characteristic. And how did we get there? Well, let's just, I'll use an example first, and then we'll just kind of continue through this process. And you can look at a number of examples that you've had in your life. I'm just going to take flying. Adrian likes flying. I love flying. I like aviation. Wayne, there's a few of us that are kind of in that boat too. Think of something that you learned to do, that when you first did it, and it may even be something that you don't do regularly. Maybe you learned to skydive. Maybe you learned to scuba dive. Maybe it was job related and it was a very difficult position and you really knew nothing, and you just have this really, I would say, intense fear might be a strong, a strong characterization of it, but you really don't know a whole lot about it. So you have some trepidation, you have some caution. You're just like, oh my gosh, I need to learn this. How do I do this? Well, first of all, you need to have a willingness to move through some of that fear to learn. And that fear can have, it can have a number of manifestations. And what I'll do is I have 3 slides here that talk about the 3 definitions. You've seen these before, but I kind of want you to take a look at these definitions as I walk through this. So you first learn to fly, you have a ground school, and you learn the characteristics of the airplane, and there's some physics involved about lift and drag and weight and those thrust, the kind of the 4 major components and how they interrelate with each other. And that when you go flying, you're now working in a 3rd dimension. You're not on the ground in your car where you can just pull off to the side of the road and because you got a flat tire, or you just need to regroup, or you got to get on your cell phone, or whatever you have to, you just have to take a potty break. I don't care what the excuse is. It's so easy to just kind of pull off or go to the rest area, and there's no big deal. Well, when you're at a few thousand feet, or 10 or 20 or 30,000 feet, and you're traveling at 100 or 200 or 500 or more miles per hour, things are a little bit different when you're up there. And as my first flight instructor said to us, and I've mentioned this too, it's always better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than to be in the air wishing you were on the ground. It's a good way to kind of think about things. It's actually a good way to kind of think about business and where you are at if you're considering what degree of risk I want to take in a particular endeavor, and what am I willing to do. It's just like going to Vegas, and how much winning am I willing to lose. Sort of that. That's the evaluation that we sort of do. But in this process of getting to a place where people look to us and say, that guy or that girl or that person, that leader, they're methodical, they're logical, they're stable, they're trustworthy, they don't yell at people, and when we're really under the gun, they're there to pat us on the back, to give us encouragement, to walk through the issues with us, to help us focus on what's important, to establish the expectation and what the priority is of what we need to do, so we know where we need to go. What is our mission? What is the milestone? What is the result that we're looking for? We have all these things, and then they're right there walking the walk along with us as we go along. That's why we say leadership by example, leadership from the front. You lead from the front. You don't sit there in the back and say, hey, you guys all go do this, and I'll see you later, while I'm not sitting there swinging my golf clubs. No, 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 no. That's not the way it works. If you want respect, if you want the appropriate courtesies, well, people will give that to you because of your title, even in the corporate America, even in the business world to some degree, that will go on. But if you really want them to follow and trust, it's because they have to have that, and they have to see these things and experience these events or these particular feelings to get to a point where they go, I can trust this person. I am going to follow them because they got their act together, because they know what they're doing, and they're doing this with me. They're not sitting there just do as I say, not as I do. That's very helpful for me. So how do we get to this whole point? So I get back to kind of the flying aspect. So there's a bunch of training, as there is in everything that we do. In a number of the channels of income that we are participating in e-commerce, many of us started out with Blue Sky and moved to other things that we're doing as well. But there is a learning curve. There's a lot of knowledge to gain, and there's knowledge to continue to gain. We still attend certain courses, certain webinars. Professionals in all sorts of industries have a thing called continuing education, whether it's the medical or dental fields or real estate or whatever profession it may be. You're in a corporation, you work in and around airplanes, or you make cars, or whatever it is you do, or even in sales, you go to sales training seminars, et cetera, et cetera. We watched and we listened to like this environment, the mastermind, guys who are motivational speakers, things that help change our mindset, improve our mindset, make us more stable. As I've talked about in this environment, the JLSM, it's helped bring the wave tops down for me so the swells aren't so big, those kind of things. In any case, so the idea is first, and there's a method to the madness here. When I look at aviation, I just use that because I'm very familiar with it. I see down these three circles. Knowledge really, I think, is where in the trait environment, this is kind of where it starts. Because the more knowledge we have, the more comfortable we begin to feel about what it is that we are doing. Repetition is the mother of all skill. We do it over and over and over again, and pretty soon we get a little better at it. I think, like Lindsay was talking about yesterday, I still have, some palpitations. I still get a little sweaty palm when I go to do these kind of sessions, or even though I know everybody here, I think that's just a natural reaction. What do they say that, the people's, first or second, people's worst fears is public speaking. Yeah, I don't particularly like that either, but as we do these things over and over again, it just gets a little bit easier for us because we are familiar with the environment and we gain knowledge of the environment. We gain knowledge of the subject matter that we are talking about, or we learning, or we have to lead on. And so the things get better. And how do we do that? We listen, we observe. There are broad spectrums of knowledge where we have to learn a whole bunch, and then we are say a jack of all trades, and maybe we're master of just a few. Where we're really good at some very specific kinds of things, and all we're trying to do is broaden our horizon in that level of knowledge. And as we gain that level of knowledge, we then, in my opinion, I think where we go to that kind of transition is we start to gain some courage. We may have had courage before because it's helped us move through these fears that we have into other environments that we do. And I don't care if it's courage that you need that's physical, even emotional, mental. For example, you're gonna do the little skydiving rig off of the stratosphere in Las Vegas, or you're gonna do a zip line or anything that you could really, you could get hurt, you could get killed. Driving a car too fast, or you're in heavy traffic. There are so many ways that we can look at this. Building up enough knowledge and understanding that things get, we have more courage. We are more stable. We're more relaxed. It was told to me as I was learning to fly that the more I understood and the easier it became for me to just click off the emergency procedures for what a particular thing that happens in an airplane. So you have an engine stall. So you have gasoline smell in the cockpit or smoke in the cockpit. Now, all these little things that potentially can happen. You get into a steep turn and you lose control of the airplane. There's a number of procedures that you must learn and literally memorize till they become second nature, where it is not even a thought process. It is now something that you do, click. You just don't even think, and it happens. And we've all lived those experiences in various things that we do too. So that's the kind of the courage pieces. As we gain knowledge, we gain our willingness to do something. We gain our ability to accept that and move through that with not as much fear. So that's the courage piece. And you'll see these small words that kind of fall. What I did is I took a few specific words out of each of those longer definitions to kind of speak to certain aspects of these different traits. And I think so the transition now moves into what I think, bearing. When we're comfortable in our own skin with the level of knowledge that we have, with the ability that we have to move forward in whatever endeavor it is, and we have that confidence, we have that, we have courage now, we have we don't have the kind of level of trepidation that we had before. We now are able to exude that. We are able to reflect that. People see that in our demeanor. They see how we act. They see what we do, and they go, "Yeah, this is okay. It's allowing me to gain some comfort too." I know in this environment, and just to look to John for a second, and what he talked. Whenever John is in here, and this guy is a dictionary on all this stuff. Of course, he's been doing it for what, 20 or 30 years, and he's just able to just off the cuff and over just talking about all these things. It's because he is a dictionary. He is an open book to this kind of information, this mastermind information, this motivational speaking, this ability to have us look at all the different types of information that's out there that we absorb, and how to look at that, how to parse it, how to triage it, how to decide what really works for us, how to move through goal setting and milestones and keep positive about things, even when we are down in that proverbial valley between the peaks, and knowing that we are moving up to the next peak. So this is all part and parcel to who we are and how these traits work for us. So I just wanted to kind of hit that topic, open it up to the floor here, about these particular 3 traits. And I'm not saying that the other traits, the other 11 that we've discussed previously, is kind of like, what was it, great initiative, poor judgment, what's more important, integrity or loyalty. We've gone through a number of these different traits, but I just wanted to, take just a light, slightly deeper dive into some that are important too. And I'm not saying that these other traits, they're all interrelated in some respect for the whole person, for the whole character of any particular individual, wherever it is that we go and whomever we talk with, and ourselves. So I see this as a progression, and I see it really working this way. That's my opinion, but I see it working this way in virtually all endeavors. And I just wrote a few things down, and then I'll open up the floor. But things like when I learned to mountain bike or flying, or when I learned how to rappel, or when I learned how to shoot, or even meeting new people and working through and how to meet them, and how to in sales, in marketing, even through the process of failure, skydiving. And I think in all this stuff, scuba diving, which I'm going to go do here in about 2.5 weeks. So on a big trip. So all these things, this is just, the list is endless, really, when you consider all the things that you have done in life. So I think it really narrows down to one particular thing when we put this all together. The greater level of knowledge that we have and the greater strength that we're able to develop for our own character and our ability to move through fear and have courage with, based on that understanding and level of knowledge and comfort, that's when we are able to move to a place where we don't lack control. We actually gain control of our circumstances, of what it is that we are doing, of the milestones that we are trying to attain. And I think that's what this is really all about, is getting away from just complete lack of control and going into a place of being able to be the master of our own destiny, so to speak. And so that was my train of thought today. I'd like to open it up for anybody else who is interested in talking to this subject matter. Anybody who wants to step out? If you've got examples of something maybe that you've gone through in that, and you say, wow, when I first started this, maybe you were 20, maybe you were 30, maybe you were 40, maybe it's something new. Maybe it's this environment that we're doing now. Maybe it was blue sky. Maybe it's one of the channels of income, whatever it is. Maybe it's family members, it's other colleagues that have come and gone. But whatever is out there that you want to share, please do. And I don't see Glenn on here, but as a damaging admission, I freely admit that I've had immense fear of certain things that I've done, and learned to do. And once I got to do them, it became easier. And I don't know, people here probably haven't done what we call the helo dunker, the helicopter dunker, where they literally put you and put a seatbelt on you, and they drop you in the water. And this is so when you fly in helicopters, if a helicopter doesn't make it to a ship and you fall in the ocean and this thing is tumbling and it's sinking, you can find a way out of the helicopter before it's too late. And they go through a progression. You first do it where you can see everybody in the helicopter, and there's about 20 of you in this tube, and you're in the seating arrangement like it is in an airplane. And then anyway, what they do is they blindfold you. You have to put on goggles that you cannot see. So now you have to be able to count the number of chairs or where you're at. If you have a window by you, it's all open, so the water comes in very quickly. You better take a breath at the right time. And they have scuba divers to pull you out in case you start drowning, but they pull you out to the side. And by the way, when this goes into water, it turns upside down on purpose. So it's meant to disorient you so that you lose where you're at. And then the last one, and this is all confidence building, the last one that you do is you put the blindfold on, and you have to go through a particular, they say, no, you don't get to use the window here. You have to go up in front to go out the main door, and you have to be able to count the number of seats as you're moving through the water upside down, all disoriented, getting kicked in the head or in the face by other guys trying to do the same thing because everybody's scrambling, getting to the door when you have 2 or 3 or 4 people trying desperately to get out of the door at the same time, and keeping your cool so you don't take a breath of water and jeopardize yourself unnecessarily. So, it's just these kind of things. So these are all great confidence builders, and you you make it. You work through it. Glenn says, hey, I'm doing my CrossFit, and guess what? I didn't die. So there you go. You move through these issues and it happens for you. And next thing you know, you do it again, and you do it again and again and again. And pretty soon you look back 20 or 30 or 50 times, or a half a year or 2 or 3 years, and you go, man, why was I even thinking that way? This is so easy for me now. It's not even a thought process. So it's just a matter of working through the various procedures and systems, and sooner or later we get it, we get comfortable, and we're able to talk with others with great comfort, with great understanding, and listening and interacting and gaining trust as they feel more comfortable in and around us because we have great bearing. And that's the whole point. Anybody want to step out? Anybody want to jump in? Nobody. Okay, it looks like Lindsay's looking like she's pointing her finger up like, just a minute. I'll be there in a minute. Anybody? Okay. What else? What else could I talk about? You know, who has done something pretty crazy in their life?
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. Hey, Sandy.
Well, I've done some crazy things that I would not even admit here. So, not even a chance of going that way. But when you were talking, and you know how you talk about at the beginning, everything is so hard and difficult, and you feel so overwhelmed. When I was a new emergency room nurse, you know, full arrests would come in or multiple traumas would come in. And the first thing I was taught was take your own pulse first, because you've got to be centered. You've got to calm yourself in some way, take a big breath, and then go for it. Okay.
That's a great
You know,
great
so
comment.
it's always take your own pulse first, and then everything else will be okay. So I learned that. And then, of course, you know, the full arrests and the multiple traumas became second nature to me after a while. But I totally can understand what you were talking about. So nothing earth shattering here for me today, but just my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Actually, I wrote this down. Take your own pulse first. That's kind of like taking stock in oneself initially before you
Yep.
go out there and lay it out on the line. You know, get it together. You know, kind of compress yourself a little bit first, and get a little stoic. You know, however you got to do it, because everybody's looking at you. And if you're walking in there and you're just scrambling, they're like, I don't want you to even touch me. You know,
That's so true.
so
You got it.
yeah, I get that. It's like, wow, where are you coming from, man? You're on Mars someplace trying to come in here and help out of the middle of nowhere, and you're all freaked out. No, please don't go there. So, yeah, good advice. I see Stefan up next, and after Stefan is Lindsay. So come on out there, Stefan. Give it a go.
Hey guys, hey guys, how are you? When you brought up the thing about like stepping out of like your comfort zone and doing something that is very difficult versus something that the whole bearing thing. When it comes to photography, like the guy that is helping me with the podcast, he's very comfortable in that sphere of audio, visual, and video and everything all combined. Like he's a multimedia guy. I'm learning that part still. But when it comes to photography, I know what I'm doing and I'm not scared of it. Like when I get to an event, I'll be able to tell the maitre d' what the schedule of the wedding is sometimes before they will. Like it's just, I've done it so much at this point that it's like, it just comes to second nature. And as you get out there, like you really do notice people ask me quite often, like, how are you everywhere all at once? I'm like, I'm not omnipresent, but I pay attention and I move around a lot. But I just feel very confident and comfortable. I'm perfectly okay grabbing old people and telling them like, yo, you move over there, you go here, you do this, or kids or whatever. You know, like that to me is easy. But getting on a podcast and following a structured timeline, like, you know, how you guys do the housekeeping and everything like that, to me, that terrifies me. I'm not gonna lie. It feels good, but at the same time, it also, like, I'm so nervous about getting it right and not screwing up that half the time I end up doing it anyways, and I just end up laughing at myself. But so it's okay. But before every single show, and if the show isn't going as good as I would hope, my stomach is in knots. So yeah, it's definitely true. And on the other hand, he's like perfectly calm. So.
Yeah, I find that kind of you know, like you say, this whole point of you know, plan's only good to the point of execution. We have all these, we know what we're walking into, we know how it's going to come together, but inevitably there's something that isn't quite, you know, isn't quite smooth enough or isn't quite working, and while we can make adjustments on the fly, it does kind of make the heart flutter a little bit, like, oh,
Yeah.
wait a second, we got to get this. I got to get on this. And all of a sudden you smooth it out and everything's cool again. It's like, okay, that didn't take as much effort as I thought it would, but you know.
On the episode that I did on Monday, I had just started the episode. I had copied and pasted the information from the guest into the box, was getting ready to talk about it. I didn't realize that I had copied and pasted over all of my interview questions. And then the dogs that my friend has started running around me like a mulberry bush, barking, and threw me off to the point where I was just like headlights. And the guy who's producing it is like sending me text messages like, pull it together, pull it together.
Yeah.
But this is how it is.
Yeah, and you never know when these things are going to happen. And again, it's an issue of composure.
Yep.
And when you have this little thing that's going on, I guaranteed that little moment may not seem like it's a big thing, but all of a sudden, all the eyes, you could just feel them all go woof, just for a second, like, what's going on over there? Oh, okay. And then once you say, okay, everything's cool, and they're like, okay, then everybody turns back and they keep doing their own thing again. But for that little second, you know, everybody's looking at you. It's like, okay, composure, keep it cool. You know, so okay, no big deal here. Do I need to stress out? Well, okay, he's not stressing out. I guess we're okay. You know?
As opposed to,
Yeah, as opposed to, oh, his hair's on fire. Oh my gosh, there must be something really wrong. So I have to do the same thing. So take a breath. Yep, as Sandy said, take your own pulse first. That's a great saying. Well, thanks, Stefan. Lindsay, you're up next. Come on out.
You know, they say if a plane's going down, you put the oxygen mask on first so you can help
Yes.
your children. So that's what I was thinking when Sandy said that. But there's always going to be something that, I mean, you or I do, a comfort zone, and you do have to keep your composure. This is not so bad for me talking on here because I don't know you guys, but you know, it's one of those where you don't have the dialogue and you're just talking. And I'm like, I can ramble on, you know, I can go down this rabbit hole, that rabbit hole. But that's the big, you know, that's to constantly push yourself out of your comfort zone and keep your composure. That is a learned skill. You know, that doesn't come naturally. It does, maybe just some, but not really. But I think those three traits get work. You're right on it. You know, you gotta have the knowledge and the composure and keep your bearings together. I love that. And that's what works in a lot of areas of everybody's life if they really break it down to it. I mean, but if you screw up and somebody's still talking about it at dinner tomorrow night, well then good job. You made an impression. You know, just go.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
You made it. You know, if you messed up that bad, then you still made an impression.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you've moved on from it and they're still trying to milk it out for some reason, you know, who's that really on?
Not me.
You know? Yeah, you move through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, good. Yeah, good job. So just to kind of summarize, and I see that the magnet has stepped in to see how we're doing. Hey, John, if you want to just come on and say a couple words, what we're up to here, please do.
All right. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone. I'm just getting here. I had to work with a client in Ireland, and so yay. I will tell you that we have. I actually have dates for when I'm contracted to be in Vegas. And it's going to be October 9th and 10th. So thank you to Virginia Pipitone, who's been very diligent in doing research on all the kind of stuff that we can do. And I have no idea what our topic is since I just got here. So that's about as profound as I'm going to be right now. But thank you,
Okay.
Mark, for what
All
you
right.
do.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, my topic today was dealing with 3 traits that are the 14, and it was knowledge, courage, and really the center or the end result is bearing, and how we carry ourselves, and how knowledge can, and repetition can help us get to a point where we have greater comfort, and the courage that we exude with what we're doing, and the level of confidence, and then how we carry ourselves. And I think it happens in every endeavor throughout life. This isn't something that you just do. Well, Lindsay, you were a gymnast. I was a gymnast. Anybody who's been in sports of any kind, when you're first learning and you go through going and you're learning these routines, or if it's MMA or anything like, or marksmanship, any kind of skill that we're learning when we're first doing it, it's, there's a pretty, there's a lot of difficulty moving through that and gaining confidence by doing these things over and over. The Olympics is going on right now. How many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of times has somebody gone through exactly the same routine, the same movement, the same thing, and just taking off small fractions, hundredths of a second in something in order to gain improvement of that. You talk about discipline. Talk about getting to that point. Talk about the pressure when you sit on, on the starting line. Like last night, I was watching some of this, the paddling, that the men's and women's paddling, and what they have to do, and they're all. Can you imagine? Or when you're standing there on the floor X, and you're about to do a routine that, if you make a mistake, could dislocate limbs or break bones or paralyze you if you hit wrong. And then on top of that, you've got hundreds, thousands, millions of people across the world watching you and rooting you on or not, and talk about pressure. So all these things kind of move into that. And you want to talk about somebody who has to have bearing? Anybody who walks out there on the gymnastics floor and they put their hand up and they look at the judge and say, I'm ready to go. And then they get up on that apparatus and it shows on right now for the next, 22 seconds or the next, 35 seconds or whatever it is. This is your time. And now is the only time that it matters right now. Now, think you got to have some bearing and kind of keep your composure and be cool? Or how about going through a particular routine? Or how about making an error or a mistake that costs your team or costs you something, and you know it? And you still have to get up and finish your routine, or you still have to get up and finish something that you're doing, even though you've had those failures or those mistakes. And we do that here every day in our businesses. We have to change something that we do in our advertising, or in the way we've talked to somebody, or we aren't failures, but we've had failings in something that we've gone through, and we have to move through that and put it behind us, learn from it, and go to the next step. John understands this too. You shoot a round downrange. Well, once that round is downrange, it is over. It's gone. It's in history. It's done. If you dwell on that, the next one that you do may do the same thing. You've got to refocus and get back onto it. You miss a move on your routine. Oh, you got to move through that and get right back on and get your mindset there instantaneously for that particular moment. So that's where we go. That's where our minds go. That is how we get to that point of bearing again.
But when you did gymnastics, I mean, I competed. Did you see anybody in the crowd? I didn't. Like when you got out there to do whatever your routine was, I never saw anybody. I was like right in my, and it was oblivious. It was just like, I don't know. You just do. It's like doing your job, but
yeah,
okay, everybody's watching. I mean, it was nerve wracking, but then you just like put your blinders on and you do what you do.
And I think, Lindsay, that's a great point. I think that's inherent in the repetition and the training that we go through and the mindset kinds of things that we, the whole emotional and mental picturing of what we do and walking through our routines, etc. Yeah, once I got there and I was getting ready to put my hands on the rings, certainly when you're sitting there on the side and you're looking up and you see everybody around and they're watching, yeah, you take note of that. But when it comes time to do your vault, when it comes time to do the high bar, when it comes time, to get on the rings, or the trampoline or whatever it is, when you get up there, that all kind of diffuses and disappears, because now what the focus must be is my head is here for for this, like I say, this next minute is where my life is, right here, nowhere else. That does not exist. So you have to, there are methods, and in this environment, what we're doing here in the JLSM environment, this is very much all about this. This is the whole the book reading that we do, and all these authors, and we talk about where's your head at, how should you think, where is the mindset at, it's Nightingale, it's Seneca, it's all these guys that talk about all these different things, and all the studying that we've been doing from the very beginning last year. We till our own mental garden, right? And good or bad, and we get to do it, good or bad. So where does one's mind, where do you want to have one's mind be at that moment? And I think this I don't want to say softer, maybe isn't the right word, but where our head is at, and how we view things and how we move through things, that also I think is manifested in the bearing, how we look to others and how we act and how we behave, and how we exude certain activities that we have. How animated are we? Are we screaming? Are we, that tonality scale again that we've looked at? Are we down there? Are we just totally? Are we negative Nelly? Are we on that enthusiasm scale? Are we staying focused? Are we staying positive despite Murphy being in our life, and throwing those little things in front of us, those little hurdles that we have to get through? So that's the topic. Anybody else want to jump out here? Oh, I see Cyril's hand is up. Sorry, Cyril, I just noticed that. Jump out here there.
Hi guys. Hi again. It dawned on me that for most of my childhood and a lot of my as a young man, I was very, very nervous and always afraid of making a mistake. And what really changed me was, first of all, experience, and the fact that things rarely turn out as negatively as you think they're going to. And that after a while of doing lots of unusual things, or doing things, you find that actually it's not that, things aren't that bad even when they're new. And then also the other thing that really helped to really calm me down and stop me being so nervous was when I worked on quietening that inner negative voice, which was so helpful. And although it still crops up now and again, and I still don't like making mistakes, but you got to forgive yourself and move on. It's because mistakes can't be helped. In fact, they're par for the course. So without mistakes, you can't move forward really, or learn and move forward in a better or greater way. So experience has been really wonderful for me because it's made my life calmer, because I'm not so nervous anymore. And to the point where people, I think they sometimes think I'm arrogant, but it's only because I've had so much hesitancy and nervousness about life and to things that that it's not the same anymore. And I know it, even if it's something new, even when if and when I make a mistake, it's not such a big deal. I can get over it and work on it. So experience is such a useful thing.
Thank you, Cyril. Great input. I think everybody would be in complete agreement here. We're human. I know that I still go through fear and trepidation. I still get the sweaty palms occasionally when I'm doing certain things. Whenever I ride, whenever I do mountain biking, as an example, it may seem like a relatively simple activity compared to, and it's different, obviously, than the business side of these things. But when I go out and I'm on trails that I've done 100 times, there are certain parts of trails that that my focus energizes a little bit, just like when Lindsay and I were talking about, the gymnastics side. You go through, I don't care how many times you've been through that, you could take a tumble. I just, good friend of mine that mountain bikes as well. He, about a month and a half ago, he took a tumble and he broke his shoulder. So, I mean, these kind of things happen. So, and it's those things on the side that, and then in our environment, I suppose I could liken it to when we see others in our environment too, and they have these barriers that they have to move through. When we see that and we're kind of doing the same stuff or we're in the same environment, I'd say it makes us take pause for a second and go, ooh, okay, maybe we want to talk to them. Maybe we want to find out what they're doing. Maybe it caused a little consternation on our part before we move through that and move to to the next step and get back on track. So I think these kind of things, no matter how much experience that we have, I suppose experience in some respects could compel us to have those thoughts even more, because now we have the experience to understand what kind of things could potentially happen. And it makes it more of an imperative for us to take a look and understand that those things aren't going to have as much of a negative impact on us as we used to think, because now we have more experience, even though we have a better understanding of what those kind of things, if they went wrong, what they could do. But now we have the experience and the wisdom to understand the things, that the actions or the reactions that we can take that make changes to that much more quickly, instead of being kind of the neophyte and not really knowing what what we would need to do, and then just having life happen to us and just reacting to life instead of taking control of life and moving through it with some purpose. So that's my 2 cents, folks. I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. In case anybody else has something really compelling, I'm gonna cut this short. I'm gonna stop the recording right now, unless, well, going once, going twice. I don't see any hands.